Hi guys, Dave Wilson here again, and today this is the third video in the rolling mill maintenance series, and in today's video I'm going to show you how to strip it down and take out the rollers, and you'll see how easy it is. Follow me. Okay, so this is the Ultra Series mill and this is the electric one, and you're probably wondering how on earth these rollers get out when you've got a solid ductile frame. Well, if you look at the side here, there's a large hole, and that's the secret to it. The rollers come up and they go out sideways, and the first thing is up on the top here. So just as you've seen before, we need to remove this little plate here, and so we can take the T-bar out, and there's just two little screws at the back which come out with hex screws. So there we go. I can now remove that little cover plate, and now that that's removed I can now just take the T-bar out. Now the second job is to remove this plastic cover here. There's just 4 screws there, and so there you go, that's the cover. Now very simple, we need to unscrew the rollers, both of them, all the way up to the top, so we've got maximum clearance in that hole to get the roller out. And the same on the other side, just screw that all the way up. Like I say, you don't need to take it out, just screw it up right up to the top. Now you'll notice where the screws go down, there's some little cups there which act as supports for the screw and stop them from damaging the brass bushings. So they just lift out. There we go. So keep them safe. And same again just on the other side there, and that just pops out. So remember, these things are very, very heavy, so use both hands. Lift it up straight. Okay, it's designed to be a close fit, right to the top, and then just slide it out sideways there. And it's as simple as that. Don't forget there are 2 springs. You might want to just take those out and just put those safely to one side. If you've got the basic type of mill where the handle is directly connected to the bottom roller, then it's really easy. Just take off the handle and then the bottom roller does exactly the same. Lift it all the way out and slide it out. Really simple. If you've got one of the Pepe units that's got a gearbox and a handle, which all of the modern ones do, then you're going to have to remove the gearbox. So take off the handle, take off the gearbox, then slide the roller out. If, like mine, you've got an electric one, then don't worry about the electrics, but it's the same thing. We need to disconnect it from the motor down here, remove the gearbox, and then the roller goes up and slides out. So that's what I'm going to show you, and whatever type of mill you've got, you may or may not need to do these additional steps. I've already taken off the safety cover so you can see what it is, and you need to rotate it so you can see that little grub screw there. And just using a little hex wrench, just loosen it. Before I can swivel it round and take the gearbox off, I need to just remove the 4 bolts at the bottom. Nice and simple. Again, just use a hex key and a spanner underneath. So once you've unbolted it from the base, only takes a second, you can now move the whole thing. Just push it that way until it disengages, and then we can now rotate it round and we've got full access to remove the gearbox. Now again, if you've got the manual version, you've probably removed the handle already, but on the electric version we need to take off this connector piece that joins the gearbox to the motor. So just unscrew the little grub screw there. So to remove this, just remove that little key piece there. You see, keep that safe, and then the whole thing should just slide off. Nice, simple. Now the gearbox is held on by 4 really long bolts. When you get all the screws out, you can find that that cover slips off. Just make sure you keep hold of the gearbox at the back and the whole cover comes off. So really simple, it's only 2 gears, don't be intimidated by it. Pop the first one off and that will pop off the bottom of the roller. Again, pop that to one side. Then we can now take that plate off. So once again, really simple now. just lift up the whole roller, both hands. You can slide it out either way. Now if you want to completely strip the rollers down, maybe there's a problem or you want to clean them or just change them, then you need to just take the bushings off. So they just slide off the ends and they should be nice and greasy. And then likewise at the other end here, the gear and the bushings will all just slide off. Don't forget to keep an eye on the little key there. Once you've got it all dismantled, you can use some alcohol like methylated spirits or white spirit, and you can use that to degrease everything and clean any gunk off it, and generally clean everything up before you reassemble it. So the first thing to go back in is the bottom roller, and if you put them side by side, the bottom roller is the longer one. You see it has this longer shaft here because that's where it attaches to the handle or the gearbox or the motor. So the longer one is the bottom, and you can see this one's got grooves on, so this goes to the left, and the top roller has a little grooves on there for the D-shaped wire, so it's quite easy with these to see which is left and right. So as you go through assembling the unit, grease everything where there's moving parts. So there we go, that's nice and lubricated there. So same on the other end. Now all the bushes are the same, but when you put them on, just make sure that the little lugs there are on the inside. So this one goes towards the roller, if that makes sense. There's two little screw holes, and the two little screw holes are at the back, and that's what hold that little plate on. So the two little screw holes are at the back of the unit, so that's what to look for. Once again, lots of grease all on the inside there where the bushings slide up and down, and just a little bit on the inside too, because don't forget there is that lip on the bushes. So just as we did before, both hands very carefully slide it in and all the way across, and then need to make sure that you get the bushes lined up both horizontally, and there's a little indentation on the top of each bushing, so you need to make sure that that is face up. And again, very important, this is very precise, so you need to get it perfectly level. You can't put one side and then the other, you need to put it in perfectly level, and then you'll find that that should slide all the way down. Again, just make sure that it does slide freely, put some more grease on if you think it needs it, and drop that down gently all the way to the bottom. Okay, so we now need to pop the gearbox back on. Really simple, so starting with the plate there at the back. A couple of things to notice. The bushing goes at the top, obviously, because it won't fit over the shaft there, and it sticks out on the inside, so you want that facing you. So just pop that over there. Now first of all, you've got this large gear. It's got a really wide opening on it, and it's got a little keyed slot there, so that slots onto the end of the shaft, and make sure that you get that little piece of metal or the little key goes onto that slot in your shaft there. So the best way to do that is to make sure that it's at 12 o'clock there, and then pop your gear on at 12 o'clock the same. Little bit of a jiddle and that should go on nicely, so that's fine. You've got two gears. Firstly, make sure that the box is the right way round with the logo and the engraving on the front there, upwards. The long gear, so the little gear there with a long shaft, that connects to the handle, so that goes in the bottom. Just pop it through the hole. So that's the handle gear there, and then it's got this big double gear at the top, and that sort of meshes with it. So all we're going to do now is we're going to slot the gearbox on, and what we need to do is we need to get these teeth on top of that gear there. So make sure everything's nice and looks about right. Get your head right over the top so you can see it, and just pop that gear on there, and that spline, that shaft there is going to go into that hole there. So that's what you're trying to line up. So a little bit of a jiddle. There you go, first time. Not difficult, don't be intimidated by it. And then the 4 bolts to secure it. Very important, make sure that all these 4 bolts are really nice and tight. Don't strip them, don't break them, but make sure that they're nice and snug. Now at this point, if you've got a manual version, you would just screw the handle onto there and then continue on with the top roller. But in this case this is electric, so I need to just put the connector little gear on there. So nice and simple, just pop the little metal key in there. That just stops it from spinning on the shaft. And again, just line that up with the slot and that will just slot on. I've got the grub screw in there, but I'm not going to tighten that up yet because I need to adjust the length of this when I put it in position. So just align that, make sure that the plastic washer is in the inside, and I'm just shoving the mill over. Now the thing that determines how far it goes is of course the screw holes in the base, and as you move it a little bit, once you get it in position you'll find that the bolts will slot in. So at this point bolt it all down and then we can do the next stage. So now that the mill's all bolted down, we just need to push that over until that connecting plate is fully engaged, and then just tighten up the little screw. Well, a little bit fiddly there, but just get your fingers in there. Now before you put the top roller in, remember to just replace the springs first. So one on that side and then one on that side. I hope you can see that there, and they just sit in the little depressions on top of the bushings. So I've got the top roller, all the bushings all cleaned up, loads of grease, but very important little thing, you notice there's a small hole at one side and there's a larger hole on the other side. Now the large hole is to go over the spring, so that goes at the bottom, and the smaller hole, that's what the little cup goes in to hold the screw at the top. So big hole at the bottom, small hole at the top, same at the other end. Feed it in carefully from one side, use both hands, get it all the way across, and remember, keep those bushings the right way around with the small holes at the top. Very important, make sure that those springs, one at either side here, that they go into the slots at the bottom and the slots in the top bushing, and it should bounce up and down on the springs. So very important, make sure those springs are correct. Pop the little keys into the slot on the ends of the rollers there, one on the top, one on the bottom, and then same as your gears have got little keyway on them, so just line those up and just tap them on. When you're putting the bottom one on, you may need to rotate the top roller a little bit just to sort of get it all lined up. So before you put the cover on, just make sure that the gears are properly meshed and that this can still move up and down a little bit. So that's absolutely fine. Now before we can put the cover on, we're going to need to reassemble the top part so that we can push the rollers down, otherwise it's going to be too high, we can't get the cover on yet. Next we need those little cups, and if you take notice there's a little stud on the bottom there, so that goes onto the top of the bushing. If I just do it from the other side there, then you can see it, and that just sits on top of the bushes there. So same on the right hand side there, just pop that in there and it just sits on top of the bushing there. Now very carefully start to screw down the screws. So I'm just turning the big gear at the top, and you can see the screw coming down here, and make sure that it just goes into that cup, which it does perfectly, and just keep turning just until it touches. So there you go, it's starting to move down now. Same on the other side. So I'm just turning the screw down and I'm just watching underneath here and just making sure that it goes into that little cup. At this point we need to align the rollers. Now again, check out the video on aligning, so I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I'm going to turn both rollers all the way down, and I'm going to make sure that that roller is going down level, So there we go. Again, check out the video on the alignment. Okay, so the roller's now down. I can now put the cover on the end. So just pop the cover back on, and again 4 little screws, just kind of find the holes there. There we go. Put those 4 screws in, and then that's done. Nice and simple. Okay, my cover's screwed back on the end. The rollers are completely closed, the top rollers all the way down. So I can now insert the T-bar in the top, and then just open it up so we can see the open parallel. And when I close them down, there shouldn't be any daylight going in between the rollers there. So that's absolutely perfectly aligned. So I can now put the top back on. So again, this is just a little plate that goes on the back there to stop you accidentally removing the T-bar, and there's just 2 little screws that go in the back. Usually I don't put any grease on these rollers at the top, because if you do, it gets very, very messy when you're handling it. So keep these clean, you don't really need grease on them. Just run a few pieces through the mill, and as you do so, just check for any movement of the unit itself, check for the gearbox jiggling about, or check for the rollers moving if one of these screws isn't tightened down. And as you see, that seems to be all very well and perfect, no problems. So there we go, job well done, nice and simple. So there you go guys, I hope you didn't find that too difficult. It's a messy job, but there's nothing difficult or hard. As you've seen, even taking the gearbox off, it's not that difficult. There's only a couple of gears, and there's only really one way around that they go, so don't be intimidated. And as always, if you've got any problems, check out the rest of the videos, see how to align it and how to clean it and polish it. So, have fun with your rolling mill, watch the rest of the videos. I've been Dave Wilson, and I'll see you real soon on the next video. Bye for now.